Hi there, Tim here. The latest MacBook Air is here and it's better than ever. Yet somehow it's more divisive than ever. Some people love the new squared off design, some miss the iconic wedge shape of the old Air, and the loudest ones complain about the notch and how the Air apparently is incapable of multitasking. I've had the base model M2 MacBook Air for a little over a week now, and this is my review of the long-awaited refresh laptop. I picked up the base model at launch and took this baby on a little trip to Toronto to really test it out. As you can see, I grabbed the Starlight version since I have a serious aversion to fingerprints. I've been in love with my Starlight 6th generation iPad mini since launch, and I really do think Starlight is the color to get on the products Apple has been releasing it on. It's silver in most light, but turns to a nice warm champagne color in others. It's really beautiful. Design-wise, the new MacBook Air has done away with the iconic wedge-shaped design that was frequently imitated with Ultrabooks from other manufacturers. Now we're presented with this new flat design that brings the MacBook Air more in line with its bigger siblings, the MacBook Pro, as well as in line with the overall design aesthetic that Apple is going for, flatter, more squared off designs. I really love this new look. The only thing I'm worried about with this new design that I wasn't really worried about with the new Pros is the thinness of this machine. It's just so light and thin that I feel like I'm going to bend it somehow if I put it in a bag wrong. I'm sure I'm just going crazy. Apple has to have thought about this, right? Now, I want to talk a little bit about who this computer is for. You might have seen a few videos out there on other channels about the limited SSD speed or benchmarks being hilariously slow. Yes, low-end SSDs like the one they're using in this base model of the Air suck. There's no getting around it. But I've seen thread after thread on the subject, and it's just old news and something that most MacBook Air users aren't going to notice in day-to-day usage. The average Air user isn't processing huge files and editing 4K videos for YouTube. No, this is Apple's, admittedly pricey, entry-level computer. It always has been. The Air isn't supposed to be a powerhouse. Now, when the average user is using this laptop, surfing the web, replying to emails, working on documents or spreadsheets, sitting in on a Zoom meeting, the new Air is great and crushes those workflows. Yes, you can edit the occasional 4K video in Final Cut or run the entire Adobe suite and do some really amazing stuff, but that's not what the average user who's buying this laptop is going to do. In fact, in my daily testing, doing all of the previous mentioned tasks, there was no difference in speed when doing the basics compared to the M2 MacBook Air with a 10-core GPU. How do I know? Because I bought that one too. Side by side for the average user, these two Macs are almost indistinguishable from one another. In fact, I don't know which one is which. They're both lightning quick. The only place I noticed a difference was in exporting video files, but the base Air was only seconds slower than the higher end model. But that's the thing. I'm not going to use the laptop for video editing all the time. I have my Mac Studio for that. And if I do happen to do some video editing on the base model Air, it's going to be basic things like touching up color grading or cutting out a scene. The heavy duty stuff is left for the heavy duty machine. This laptop is the best laptop in Apple's lineup for everyday work, but only if you can afford the $200 premium over the M1 Air. If not, the M1 Air is still a fantastic machine and works almost as great as the M2. So the screen has a notch, and I really don't get what all the crying is about it. It really has no impact on how you use the computer or what you see when you're working on it. Unless you have an application that puts a lot of information or menu items in the top, you're not gonna notice it. Move on. What's really impressive about the screen though is just how great it looks. Apple's increased the brightness to 500 nits, so it's brighter than the previous generation. Even though it's just 100 nits, it's noticeable. It supports P3 wide color and has support for 1 billion colors. Sure, there's no ProMotion, but we don't expect that on an entry-level laptop. Text is super crisp still, photos and movies are brilliant and vivid with rich contrast and sharp detail. It's just a great screen as we've come to expect from Apple. The keyboard is nice and quiet with good travel on the keys, and we all know that nothing compares to Apple's trackpads. There's a row of full-size function keys with a Touch ID and power button to the right-hand side. Battery life on these things, fantastic. I can get through an entire day and still have a good amount of battery left. MacBook Airs have always had great battery life, so there's no surprise there. Standby time, still amazing too, using basically no battery while the lid is closed and the computer is in standby mode. MagSafe's back. No surprise there, but it's fantastic that it now gives us back one of our only 2 USB ports. It's an effortless way to charge your devices, and I'm glad Apple is bringing it back. Plus, the color-matched braided cables, nice touch. Okay, then there's the price. At $200 more than the previous M1 Air, it's a bit much to ask for what you actually get. Spec up the laptop with more storage and RAM, and the price gets really close to MacBook Pro territory. Unless you want the latest and greatest, the M1 Air is still a fantastic buy, and it's actually the one I'd probably recommend over this Air for most people. For that $200 though, you're getting a slightly better screen, a new design, MagSafe charging, and only minimal improvements on speed, to be honest. I guess there's also the fact that getting the new midnight color lets people know that you've got the latest and greatest, so there's that too. If you do decide on the M2 MacBook Air but can't get anything more than the base model, I can assure you that's okay. You'll be more than happy with this little workhorse and you will not regret it. So that's my review of the M2 MacBook Air. I'll be back with more videos on the M2 Air in the coming weeks and months, so make sure you subscribe so you can catch the latest videos as soon as I post them. Until then, I'd like to hear from you in the comments below. Did you pick up the new MacBook Air? And if so, which color did you settle on? If you go with the midnight colorway, how is that holding up with your greasy meatbag fingers? What's your experience been? Let me know in the comments below. I'm Tim, and I'll see you in the next one.